welcome to the live webinar as we speak. However, we thought that we are going to welcome everyone who is here already. Welcome to the webinar where we are going to share some information about 3 of our amazing LLM programs. We understand that we have a very mixed audience here today. We might have some students who have already applied for some of these programs, but we also have students who are only inquiring for the first time about studying in Ireland, studying in Cork City, and studying at University College Cork. So very warm welcome to all of our participants. As it was notified earlier, this webinar is being recorded, so the recording will be shared with everybody who registered formally for this event, so that you can possibly review the recording in your own time at a later stage. We will also share the PowerPoint slides that will be used during the webinar today, and we are going to share our contact details as well, should you have any questions later on after the webinar ends. The way we are going to organize the webinar this afternoon is that we are going to allow our program directors to deliver a short presentations about their LLM programs, and we will then open the floor to questions from the audience. We anticipate to finish in 60 minutes. We anticipate to be finishing by 2 o'clock Irish time. So if there are no questions to start with, I would like to introduce the program director of the LLM Alternative Dispute Resolution Program that is run here at UCC School of Law, Dr. Henrietta Zeffert. She is going to talk us through this amazing program, what it offers, and why it might be the right choice for you. So Henrietta, if it's okay for you, we are going to pass over to you.
Thanks, Zita. Hi, everyone, and Eid Mubarak for those who are celebrating this week. It's a real pleasure to be here. As Zita said, I'm Dr. Henrietta Zeffert, and I'm the Program Director for the LLM in ADR. I'm a lecturer in the School of Law at University College Cork, and I'm also a mediator. I'm going to talk through the LLM Alternative Dispute Resolution, and I look forward to chatting with you about it afterwards with your questions. So the degree of Masters of Law Alternative Dispute Resolution is a 1-year full-time or a 2 years part-time program. The LLM is assessed through role-play simulations, written reports, and a dissertation. And I'll say a bit more about that as we go on. So the LLM in Alternative Dispute Resolution is the first of its kind in Ireland. It's a really unique program as it's the only LLM program in Ireland where students graduate with both a Master's in Law as well as 2 professional qualifications with the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators as well as the Irish Professional Mediators Organisation. So you get 2 professional qualifications on graduating with this degree. Our program in ADR has very wide national and international appeal to graduates who are considering taking an LLM, as well as those who are already working and who are looking to upskill in alternative dispute resolution. And I'll talk more about the types of skills that you will gain from this program a little bit later. The LLM in ADR welcomes graduates who are studying or working in a range of disciplines. You don't have to be studying law or working in the field of law. And I'll also talk more about this a little bit later, but we welcome graduates from a whole range of different disciplines inside and outside of law. We also offer this program part-time as well as also as a postgraduate diploma. And this means that this program enables people from various backgrounds to undertake the program. So a little bit more about alternative dispute resolution itself. So alternative dispute resolution is an integral part of national legal practice here in Ireland. We have multiple pieces of legislation that directly address and regulate both mediation and arbitration. And alternative dispute resolution is also a big part, obviously, of international legal practice, and that's reflected in things like the EU's Alternative Dispute Resolution Directive 2013, as well as the UN International Trade Commission on Trade Law, Model Law, and the Singapore Convention on Mediation. So there's plenty of law on mediation. This is a really ripe area for both theory and practice. In Ireland, the use of mediation is now the preferred forum for the resolution of all civil disputes, and this is public policy since the commencement of the Mediation Act in 2017. So Ireland is a pretty unique place because we actually have legislation on mediation, and that sets Ireland aside from most other countries and means that it's also a really interesting place to be studying ADR as well as practicing ADR. And so there's also a lot of demand for mediation and dispute resolution skills in Ireland, in the legal profession, and in many other industries, as there is outside of Ireland. So UCC has developed our LLM program in response to that increasing demand for alternative dispute resolution. And our program emphasizes developing core skills, including conflict resolution, active listening, facilitation of conversations and disputes. These skills are central in so many employment contexts and different roles, including non-legal roles, which many of our graduates pursue. Additionally, given the growth in the use of mediation and dispute resolution nationally and internationally, having professional qualifications in dispute resolution are in demand. So in addition to enhancing your professional skill sets and career opportunities more broadly within and outside of law, there are a number of different career paths for people equipped with dispute resolution skills in both public bodies and in private settings. So in the private sector, obviously working in-house as a legal counsel or working for a big firm, or outside of law, working, for example, in the construction sector as a conciliator, working as a facilitator of disputes in something like a public body like the Residential Tenancies Board or the Legal Aid Board. There's just a sort of an endless array of professions and bodies that are now wanting people with dispute resolution skills. The LLM in ADR provides students with both academic content as well as opportunities for skills development through experiential learning. By experiential learning, we mean things like doing role plays, doing dispute resolution simulations. That is a part of every seminar we do in our program. Our program is taught by a team of academic staff with extensive academic, practical, and policy experience in dispute resolution. Many of us are ADR practitioners ourselves. Students have, in addition to the actual core courses, which I'll talk a little bit about later in dispute resolution, students on the program also have a wide choice of elective modules taught across the School of Law. And in the School of Law, we have a range of specialisms, including things like banking law, commercial law, competition law, consumer law, company law, maritime and environmental law, EU law, human rights law, international law, medical law, child and family law. The list goes on. But if you choose to do the LLM in ADR, you will have access to take those modules as electives. Within the LLM and ADR, there are also a lot of opportunities to engage with the ADR industry itself, and this is integrated into the program. So, for example, students will benefit from a number of guest seminars from leading international dispute resolution practitioners, some of whom are actually on our adjunct faculty. These include people like Dr. Roisin O'Shea, who is a barrister, a mediator, and a founder of the Irish Professional Mediators Organisation, which is the peak professional body for mediators in Ireland. We also have Mr. John Gaffney, a principal solicitor and mediator at an international firm, Miss Meg Burke, a leading international arbitrator, and Dr. Bill Holohan, a leading solicitor and mediator. So there's plenty of contact with practitioners in the field, and our students really thrive from having the opportunity to meet and talk with people who are actually working every day in dispute resolution and who've made that their career. So the aim of the program is to provide students with a blend of both theoretical and practical grounding in alternative dispute resolution, as well as to develop very advanced skills and knowledge that are required to achieve resolution during disputes. So I've just put on the slide there, I won't go through them, but a number of different things that you will learn, highlighting there that we place significant emphasis on skills building. I've already mentioned role play and a range of other in-class exercises. Identifying good models of mediation practice. That's particularly important as mediation is increasingly regulated in most countries. I mentioned that Ireland has its own mediation legislation. And, working on applying what you learn in the classroom to very complex and challenging situations. Mediation, alternative dispute resolution deals with disputes between people that arise out of everyday life. So a lot of the work you do as a dispute resolution specialist requires you to have a good understanding of human relations and how we communicate and talk to each other. So we really practice that in class for you to be able to bring those skills into the world beyond. And then a really significant part of the LLM ADR program is writing a high-level master's dissertation towards the end of your year. And you choose a topic of your own interest. So writing the dissertation is a really nice chance for you to pick up a particular topic or theme that you're interested in exploring at the length of a dissertation. It's about 12,000 words, and you will write that under supervision, under the supervision of one of the academics in the School of Law. So entry requirements for the LLM and ADR, part-time or full-time, and also for the postgraduate diploma in ADR, you have to meet either A or B there on the slide. A BCL honours degree from the National University of Ireland with at least a second-class honours grade 1, or B, have other relevant third-level qualifications or professional experience which would meet this requirement. So we get a lot of people applying from outside of Ireland and a lot of people applying who don't already have a law degree. There are ways of recognising that, and you're all very welcome. Importantly, applications are considered from graduates in a range of areas, as I've mentioned, not just law. So we get students doing the LLM and ADR who come from a business background, a construction background, human resources, management, the healthcare sector, education, social work. The list goes on, but this course is not closed. You do not have to have a law degree. You don't have to have experience in the legal profession. And you have the opportunity in your application to write a personal statement and reflect on the experiences that you've had that make you suitable for this degree. For example, you might have had experience already in your workplace working on dispute resolution as, for example, a facilitator perhaps or a conciliator. That's the type of experience that you can bring to us and talk about in your application, and we will consider that. Yes, and I've put a link on a later slide for more details on how to apply and meeting the entry requirements and also English language requirements for non-native speakers. So you'll find that there on a later slide. I've already mentioned that there are full-time and part-time options. That's just the breakdown of credits for each year. And we have a fairly good number of students each year taking that part-time option, so it's not at all unusual to be doing this course part-time. We have a lot of students on the program who are working full-time whilst also doing the course part-time. That is, they tell us, very manageable. I'm not going to go through these, but just there on the slide, you can see what core modules you take on the LLM and ADR. So there's a range of core modules that you have to take. So everyone takes these modules, and you have to take these modules in order to get those accreditations from the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators and from the Irish Professional Mediators Organisation. You have to take those core modules if you want that accreditation. And then you have all sorts of elective modules that you can choose from, which is super exciting. And just coming to the end now, talking about career pathways, I really can't emphasize more how central dispute resolution skills are in so many different employment contexts and professional roles. And I really want you to think about how alternative dispute resolution is growing in every country, in every jurisdiction, in Ireland and internationally, such that having a professional qualification in dispute resolution is really valued by employers. And by doing the LLM and ADR, you will develop a skill set that will put you ahead of the rest in terms of having really well-refined skills in active listening, conflict management, facilitation, dealing with complex, challenging, and stressful situations. And these kinds of skills are highly sought after in so many employment contexts. I've mentioned, obviously, that within law, having an ADR degree is really valuable, but also outside of law. And I've mentioned already the human resources industry, the construction industry, investment dispute arbitration, just sort of there's an endless list of areas in which you will be able to use the skills that you develop in this course, both in the public and the private sector. And many students come to this degree who are already in the workplace, but want to upskill and bring the skills back to the job that they're already in. So just finally, this is a really specialized LLM that builds on the law school at UCC's considerable expertise in research and teaching and dispute resolution. During this program, you will learn from our vibrant community of legal scholars, and you'll also benefit from guest seminars from leading dispute resolution practitioners, including from among our own adjunct faculty. It's a really cutting-edge curriculum. It's a leading and unique program. It is embedded in an experiential approach to learning. This means that it brings together theory and practice. We practice our dispute resolution skills in every seminar, and we provide our graduates with the opportunity to really develop and advance their skills in a safe and supportive environment, getting one-to-one feedback from your instructors and also from your colleagues. Finally, students who successfully complete this program will graduate with both an academic degree and professional qualifications. I've mentioned already that students will obtain associate level with the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators and newly qualified mediator status with the Irish Professional Mediators Organisation. That's all from me, and I look forward to your questions later. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Henrietta, very much for your informative presentation. We are going to leave the questions for Henrietta for the end of the webinar. We are going to move on to the next presentation that will be delivered by Professor Louise Crowley, who is the Program Director of our LLM in Children's Rights and Family Law. So Louise, if it's okay, we are going to move on to your program next. Sorry, Louise, I think you're muted.
Yes, I am muted. That's a great start. I'm more capable than that. Welcome, everybody. I'm really delighted that you took the time to join our webinar today and to get an insight into these programs. My own is the LLM in Children's Rights and Family Law. So I've been the director of that program for about 12 years now. And we're really proud of this program. And I'll hopefully be able to explain that to you over the coming minutes, just to give you an insight into the composition of the program and the nature of the delivery and assessment, and very importantly, the types of career options that have been taken up by our graduates over recent years. And then, of course, happy to answer any questions that you may have later when we finish these presentations. So the LLM in Children's Rights and Family Law, so it's in place now about 14 years, and it is truly a unique offering. So across Ireland, the LLM Children's Rights and Family Law is very sought after by those who are looking for a very specialised education on all aspects relating to the protection, the regulation of the rights of children, and also the regulation of family law, which in essence focuses upon the adult relationships, howsoever formed, and the obligations that parties owe to each other, and the way in which the state does and must support various family formations. So as I say, it's very unique and is hugely powerful because of the range of expertise and knowledge of those who deliver the program. So we're very lucky here. This program was developed on the basis of the experts within the law school, nationally and internationally renowned academics, who each of whom impact on national and international policy and lawmaking. Reform is a very important aspect of children's rights and family law, and my colleagues and I have had the opportunity to contribute to that evolution of law in this area. So those of you who are interested in children's rights and family law would probably be familiar with the huge transformation that has occurred on the Irish legal landscape in respect of both individual rights within a family unit, particularly so children's rights following the children's rights referendum in 2012. And indeed, as a lecturer of family law for the last 25 years, it's quite fascinating that every year something has changed. So over the time that I have been here in UCC, we have seen a huge change in societal norms, which have in time informed the legal regulations. So we have the recognition of same-sex couples, beginning with the Civil Partnership Act in 2010, and following on then with marriage equality in 2015. Similarly, we now have regulations to protect those who cohabit and are financially dependent on each other, and all types of development of law, whereby in 2015 children became the centre of all decision making and lawmaking in respect of families. So really, we've seen an evolution which has, over time caught up with the social norms and the choices of individual people and individual families. And that's really powerful that our law now expands to recognise but also protect families, not just based on marriage, but many other formations, which is really brilliant. And it's a pleasure to be able to share those developments, those critical social developments with our students. And at master's level, it becomes a very critical examination and lends itself to very engaging discussions and debates in every seminar, because everybody has an opinion or some experiences or some insights, and we can explore those whilst also looking at international best practices. So it's really powerful and really interesting. Every seminar is an issue that touches on so many people. So this specialism that we have across the areas of children's rights and family law allows us to present and deliver and share, absolutely of the moment developments in law, many of which one or all of us have contributed to from a policy perspective, sitting on national and international committees. So just a quick list of some things that we look at. As I said, the regulation of intimate adult relationships, both the functioning and then on dissolution, family property ownership and financial responsibilities post-divorce. So looking at the national and international position, Ireland is a very conservative approach where parties continue to have financial ties, notwithstanding the divorce. And we look at that from a contrasting perspective with international approaches, which very often prefer a clean break or to support independent living. From a children's rights perspective, this is such a vast area with the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. And I have a number of colleagues who are, really significant experts in this area, and, very substantially influencing law and policy. My colleague, Dr. Conor O'Mahony, has just finished up his 3 years position as Special Rapporteur for Children's Rights, so appointed by the government to inform government policies and practices. Similarly, my colleague, Professor Ursula Kilkelly, is an internationally renowned expert on children's rights and juvenile justice, and has played a huge role, particularly with developing countries, in terms of their laws in these areas. And I suppose through our two very unique and very well-known clinics, the Family Law Clinic and the Child Law Clinic, our students get the opportunity to work on real cases, working with practitioners, providing research dossiers to support and elevate the standard of advocacy before the courts, as well as working with NGOs and other policymakers to support law reform, and also dealing with access to information and legal literacy to support the general public to understand family law, have greater insights and understanding, and supporting applications to the court through the provision of documentation and information. So, a webinar like this, it's really hard to capture the actual breadth of the modules that we deliver, and for each module, the depth of the discussion and debates within each module. So, excuse me, looking at the eligibility criteria, just for clarity, because in past years, when we had less specialised programmes, we stuck very rigidly to the 2H1 law degree requirement for entry. But as our programmes became more specialised, it became very apparent that in the classroom, the debate, the discussions, the insights, and the perspectives of a range of people from different backgrounds and experiences really added to the dynamic of the class and the shared learning in each seminar. So we moved towards also including applicants who have a third level qualification in a related area. So that could be social work, education, medical, could be a range of things, and or may have professional experience. So they could be working for the last 20 years, 5 years, it depends on each application, in an area that is impacted upon the law of children's rights and families. And so if you don't have a 2-1 law degree, perhaps have another qualification, or perhaps simply have very significant professional experience, you absolutely should apply. Each of those applications will be considered in its own right, but we do place a large emphasis on prior learning, whether that's academic or through practice. And so if this is an area that impacts on your work area, absolutely, it's worth applying for. And if you're an overseas candidate, you're very welcome to apply. Please do so. And your qualifications will be considered on a case-by-case basis, supported by the International Office, who have a very good understanding of the equivalence of those results. So just the programme content, just deal with this on one slide. So uniquely, this master's programme is predominantly compulsory in terms of the modules that you will take. And the thinking behind that is to ensure that when you qualify and graduate, when you graduate with an LLM in children's rights and family law, you truly are a specialist in the area. So in fact, we have the 30 credits which relate to the dissertation and the supportive legal research methods and writing module. So that's 30 credits. And if you take this program, you will have a choice to cover any area within the realm of children's rights and family law that is of interest to you, where we have expertise in the school to support you, and it will be within the context of children's rights and family law. After that, then we have 60 credits. And as you can see, there are 50 compulsory credits, so that it ensures that across comparative family property law, child law and practice, the family and the law, contemporary issues in children's rights, foundations of international children's rights law, and juvenile justice, that you will leave the law school with this depth and breadth of knowledge. You'll see that the other 10 credits in the compulsory list, core modules, is the family law clinic, which I will mention in the next slide. We actually have 2 clinics, the family law clinic and the child law clinic. The child law clinic is on hold for 12 months. And so at the next academic year, the compulsory module will be the family law clinic. And then you get to take 10 credits from the remaining modules. So you'll see the list is short, and certainly they all relate to the areas of children's rights and family law. So there's mental capacity law, mental health law, alternative dispute resolution processes and practice, touched on by my colleague Henrietta in the last presentation, and refugee and forced displacement law. So you can see quite clearly how each one of those 4 electives will support and enhance the learning from the core modules that are delivered. Just to give you an insight into the family law clinic, so the law school and its children's rights and family law masters, one of the key elements that is internationally recognised are our 2 clinics. So my colleague, Dr. Conor O'Mahony, Professor Conor O'Mahony, who is the Dean of Law here, delivers and is the director of the Child Law Clinic, which does a lot of work in supporting policy and law reform, presenting submissions, both requested and elected to send in relation to existing draft laws, influencing their final iteration, as well as policy papers on areas that need further consideration. Additionally, they provide advocacy support for practitioners, creating research dossiers to support live cases to enhance the advocacy level and ensure that there's an understanding of both national and international law as it relates to any given case. I'm the director of the Family Law Clinic, and that's what will be on offer and compulsory to do so over the next academic year. And so there's a couple of key issues to the Family Law Clinic. It's one of its primary aims is to support access to justice, and we do so by supporting access to information, which is pretty fundamental requirement in order to access justice. So 11 years ago now, we created the Family Law Information Hub. So supported by the Irish Research Council, we received funding to develop an online hub whereby all issues of family law will be identified with an introduction to ensure an understanding of the area of law, and then a collation of all relevant supports, services that an individual would need to rely upon, or supporting documents for making applications to the district court where relevant. And so every year the students of the Family Law Clinic take a part of, each of them take a part of the website, and we ensure that it's up to date. If there's any new laws or practices, that they are added to the information hub, and then obviously the mundane thing of checking that all the links are still working and all the contact numbers are still relevant. Additionally, we receive requests every year from practicing lawyers, typically solicitors, who have family law cases that are novel in terms of the issues, or they don't have support to do the necessary research. And we will, as a clinic, divide up the issues between the students, and they work in groups to create ultimately a research dossier for the solicitor, who then relies upon that either in court with litigation, or perhaps manages to settle the dispute with the help of the research. So this year we provided support to a solicitor who was acting for grandparents who were being refused access to their grandchildren, to provide the solicitor with all the necessary information, case law and legislation that govern the area. We have worked on cases involving pursuing maintenance both across Europe and indeed for an individual who had fled to America, supporting the Irish lawyers who may not be familiar with the likes of the Hague Convention or other international UN treaties that would allow for the Irish courts to rely on to pursue a just outcome. So that's incredibly interesting. And every year the solicitors we support will come into the class and talk to the students about how they used their research to pursue the case. Then finally on that, our students publish a blog each, 700-word blog on an issue of family law that's topical and that they want to write about. And it's done in the style of a newspaper article so that they get published on our website. And a number of them have in fact been picked up by newspapers and published. So that's another way of providing up-to-date information to the public. And just to note that in 2020, the clinic received a Teaching Excellence Award from the President because of the innovative approach to allowing the students to have a more experiential understanding and experience of family law and practice. So we're very proud of that clinic. And finally, just to talk about careers post-graduation, because this is one of the key questions that I get asked every time I speak to an applicant or a potential applicant. And what I would say is that similar to what Henrietta said, is that we would get every year people who are working in the law, people who are working in the probation office, people working, social workers, who want to get this qualification, supports them to be promoted and to more significant and elevated work within their current experience. So using it to enhance their knowledge and understanding, which lends them to be a much more preferable candidate, I suppose, for promotion and expansion of experience. So this is just a list. It is definitely not exhaustive. It's just an example of where our graduates go. So every year we would have people who join the program with a view to going into specialized legal practice. So either a specialized family law barrister, a specialized family law solicitor. We have even had graduates who set up their own family law practices following this experience. We also would have current solicitors and barristers every other year who would join so that they can get that expert knowledge to put themselves out there as carrying particular expertise in their children's rights and family law. Academia, of course, is an option. So just last December, a graduate of this program, he undertook a PhD with the support of the Legal Aid Board, and he did his Viva in December and finished his PhD. So that was his natural evolution from completing the degree. He went straight from completing the degree in children's rights and family law to commencing a PhD in partnership with the Legal Aid Board and financially funded by the Irish Research Council. So it's really great to see that progression. NGOs, it's a big area and so vast. where people will work with charities or NGOs who work to support, for example, maybe working in the area of domestic violence, working with the state agency or support service in terms of advocacy, data collection, and being the legal advisor in relation to the running of any NGOs or support provision. Guardian ad litem, so these are experts who provide the voice of the child in contentious family law proceedings and will be hired by the state in the new process that's being established. Mediation, of course, you've heard from Henrietta, so family law practitioners, mediation and supporting their clients in appropriate cases to move to mediation to resolve disputes. Albeit it's a voluntary choice, it can be an incredibly positive choice for parties. So people do practice both. I've had mediators come to this program because they want to specialize in family law mediation. And I've also had graduates who go from this program to go on to secure a mediation qualification. And as you saw, that you have the option to take a module on mediation practices and processes as part of this program. We've a number of graduates over the last number of years who've gone on to work for the Law Reform Commission, which is the national body that identifies areas of law that need reform, and they put together a report for government. Our recent graduate, Marianne Joyce, is now a senior researcher with the Law Reform Commission, having gotten that post 6 months ago. So really, really important position for her. And again, bringing all of that knowledge with her. We have various representatives currently in the Dáil who have law degrees from UCC. So, we get that every year through both the undergraduate degrees and the specialised masters, that you will have people who will use that as a platform for political roles. Also at a European Union level, huge number of regulatory roles that are supported by law graduates. And again, I've had journalists, people moving on to journalism, and then I have everything and anything else, because it really opens up so many doors for individuals, and depending on where they're coming from as regards to their own work experience. And also, I find that in the course of the year or 2 years, if you're part-time, that students can be very drawn into a particular area, and it is only in completing that they realise that that's the area that they want to work in the future. And just to mention, the dissertation that you will complete can very often, I've seen, be the big foundation step for the next step in the career, in that you look at a particular area, family law, children's rights, over a 3 or 4 month period, and write your lengthy dissertation. And that can be the foundation step for moving in a particular preferred direction. So that's all I want to say for now. Really happy to answer any questions when we're finished our presentations. But of course, feel free to contact me directly with any questions or queries that you might have. That's my email address, l.crowley@ucc.ie. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Louise, for this informative presentation, and I'm sure there will be plenty of questions and follow-up queries following your presentation later on. At the moment, however, we are going to move to our last presentation of today's webinar. We are introducing Dr. Doug Kabi, who is the Program Director of our LLM in International Human Rights and Public Policy Program. So Doug, if that's okay with you, we are going to allow you to introduce the program that you look after.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Zita, and thank you very much for everyone who's joined on this call. I'm going to be presenting about one of our longest running LLM programs, the LLM in International Human Rights Law and Public Policy, which has been running for 15 years now. I don't have fancy slides. What I've done is I've put a link in the Q&A, which takes you to the web page on UCC, because in a similar manner to both our LLM in ADR and our LLM in children's rights and family law, we have the option of taking the Human Rights Masters both as a 1-year full-time or a 2-year part-time degree. And what we've seen over the years is that we have a very diverse range of students who are interested in taking this program. And in fact, it's perhaps a slightly broader program than the other two that we've heard of today. And I'll explain that over the next 5-10 minutes or so, what the options are and what some of the career opportunities are. I should also note that I'm currently the programme director. However, one of my colleagues, Dr. Samantha Morgan-Williams, is going to be returning and taking over as the programme director for those of you who are applying for the start in September 2026, it will be Samantha who will be the programme director. But what's interesting is Samantha was actually one of the first graduates of the Masters in Human Rights and Public Policy. So it's very interesting to see her own return to the programme, having completed a PhD and moved into academia, having first done the LLM programme. As I mentioned, our student cohort for the LLM in human rights is very diverse. At the moment, for example, this year we have students from 11 different countries from 3 different continents. And that's one of the strengths of the programme. We take a very broad perspective. So when we think about human rights law and public policy, that can be everything from trying to tackle homelessness here in Cork City to big questions of international humanitarian support, armed conflict, or trying to address some of the rights of specific groups such as older persons. So what we see is we have some people who do this Masters because they're intending to focus on the domestic Irish context, whereas others are looking at a European or global perspective, and that's reflected in our alumni as well, that we have people who are working within legal practice in Cork, for example, working in the field of refugee law or working within environmental law. We then have people working for non-governmental organisations like the Irish Council for Civil Liberties or the Irish Prison Reform Trust. We then have people working at a global level, working for the United Nations, for example, in the High Commissioner for Refugees, or working in the International Criminal Court. So it's quite a diverse group of students who take part in this Masters. And as I said, that's one of the strengths because we learn from each other. I always say the strength of the class is actually the different perspectives and professional experience that many people have who are which they bring to the Masters programme itself, based on their countries that they come from and based on their disciplinary background. Because in the same way to the ADR programme, we accept people from a wide range of different disciplinary backgrounds. There's no requirement to have a law degree to complete the LLM in human rights and public policy. However, we will be looking to see what are your experience either working in human rights or perhaps in related subjects such as international politics, international relations, sociology. But we've had people who've completed the degree whose undergraduate degrees have been in music, for example. So based on people's experience and people's passion for working in human rights, that can be hugely important to determine whether someone is the right fit for this programme or not. So the entry requirements are in the same way, are a 2-1 qualification at undergraduate. So that's a 60% within the Irish context or above. But we do look at recognition and prior learning. So we look to see what are people's professional experience, what are their experiences perhaps in the not-for-profit sector or volunteering. So when I reference professional experience, that's not just for paid, it can be people working within their communities in the voluntary capacity, as well as then their undergraduate original degree, which may come from a variety of different areas. It doesn't need to be from law. If we look at the structure of the degree itself, we can divide the Human Rights Masters into 3 sections. So each LLM degree is 90 credits overall, as Henrietta and Louise have mentioned. And what we have within the human rights degree is 25 credits, which are compulsory modules. So that's quite a lower number than some of our other master's programs. So they're to set the core subjects of international human rights law, public international law, and then our human rights law and practice clinical module, which I'll come back to in a minute. Students then have 35 credits of optional modules, and there's quite a long list of optional modules that people can take. And that reflects the diversity and the breadth of people who are studying the human rights degree. Some people, for example, may want to pick up modules on, for example, international children's rights law or juvenile justice, or maybe looking at some of our climate change or international environmental law modules. Other people may want to take a broad range covering lots of different topics from refugee and forced displacement, international criminal law, ADR, there's options to take ADR modules. So the range of topics that people can take within the Human Rights Masters is fairly broad. However, because the final third is the research dissertation of 12,500 words, students also have the opportunity to focus and specialise. So, for example, if someone's interested in the field of refugees and forced displacement, they can take a 10-credit module taught on refugees and forced displacement, and then complete their 25-credit research dissertation, also in the field of refugees. So that way someone can have the broad human rights degree, but with a subspecialization focusing, for example, on refugees. We also have modules which come from other disciplines. So we've always had a strong focus on criminal justice. So looking at the rights within both domestic and international criminal justice processes. So there are opportunities to take modules such as criminology and penology, as well as international criminal law or juvenile justice. Just to finish then, because I'm conscious of time and I think it's important to give people the opportunity to ask questions that they may have. One of the key aspects that I mentioned was our Human Rights Law in Practice clinical module. And in this module, what students do is they work together in groups on a capstone project. So developing a human rights project. So what the groups have to do is they have to identify within the confines of the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission's funding application process, what sort of project do they think could potentially be funded? So they need to identify the research questions, the activities, developing budgeting skills, working out what are the potential partners for this project. And so the groups then complete a real life funding application form for the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission. So by the end of this capstone project, they will have identified a means of developing a human rights project and potentially sourcing funding for it as well. The final point I'll make is that the Human Rights Masters is also closely linked to our research centre, the Centre for Criminal Justice and Human Rights. What I'll do is I'll put the link to that research centre into the chat box as well. But at this point, I'll hand back to Zita and to you guys if you have any questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Doug, for joining us today and for talking about the very popular LLM in international human rights and in public policy, and for, I suppose, making it much clearer for us what the program entails and who it might be suited for. So at this moment, we would like to open the floor to our audience. At the moment, you won't be able to unmute, so please raise the virtual hand if you want to talk to us, and we will be able to unmute you. However, the Q&A and the chat option is available to you all, so please feel free to type in your question as well.
Zita, I see Melissa has put her hand up.
Hello. Yes, first of all, thank you all for the presentation. My question is regarding to the LLM program of the ADR regarding Dr. Zeffert. It's a bit specific, I'm sorry. I'm just very nervous because I'm not sure about these rolling applications because I'm from Central Europe and normally we have fixed dates. So my question is regarding the timeline for the application and when I can I'm ready to, so there will be a decision or something or a pending offer, because I applied to other programs as well and offers come in now and the UCC is my absolute number one. So I'm currently just, I try not to gamble something, but obviously it's my future career. So I want to make the right decisions and I'm considering if I should wait longer or what's the timeline.
Hi, thanks. Sorry, is Melissa your name?
Yes.
Great. Thanks very much, Melissa, and thanks for joining us today. And that's obviously brilliant to hear that UCC would be your #1 choice. Thanks very much for that. That's a really good question about the application timeline. So yes, as you've noticed, the applications are open and on a rolling basis. That means that we look at your application as soon as it comes in and try to make a decision as quickly as possible. And so you would get an offer or if a request for further information if that was needed, but you would get an answer, fairly quickly. That might be a matter of weeks. But yes, there aren't sort of fixed deadlines. Sometimes it can take a little bit longer. And I might ask actually Professor Crowley to come in here because you're also dealing with applications and might have more to add to this.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Melissa. Thanks for the question. So the process, we have a rolling rolling application process, quite simply to facilitate both the early applicants as well as those who make up a decision at the last minute. But once you submit your application, it will go through the review process. So it first goes to the director of the program, and thereafter, if there isn't a very clear meeting of the criteria. So if you meet the criteria and perhaps, so are you still studying, Melissa, or?
Yes, I'm still studying. So
Okay,
I don't have my bachelor's degree or the grade, which I think is part of the reason why.
Yeah, no, I understand. So how that is dealt with very simply is that if your degree that you're pursuing is pertinent to the area, well, there would be an offer made conditional upon you securing the 2H1, the second class honours grade 1, which Doug said, as Doug said, was 60% and upwards. In the event that you came very close, your application would still be reviewed when your mark is released, and we would look at the totality of your application. But I suppose the bottom line, if you were to apply for the LLM and ADR, a conditional offer would be made, and then on receipt of your degree and your marks, and that you would communicate that to us, and then the conditional offer would automatically become a full offer. So what you get up to the time that you get your results will be a conditional offer, which will, does that answer your question?
Yeah, okay. So like 3 weeks is like normal. I'm not freaking out or something.
Oh God, no, not at all. They go, you see, it doesn't go to us. It goes to Central University, and then it comes back to the director to approve, and then it goes to the internal reviewer. If there's any doubt, to double review it, that goes back to Central University, and then it's communicated to the student. So don't worry a bit. What I would say to all of you listening today, Melissa and everybody else, is that your personal statement on the application is really important, because it gives you the opportunity, I suppose, in the first instance, to articulate your passion for the area and why it is you want to pursue this specialized area particularly. But also remember, it's an opportunity to show us your writing style or your capacity to articulate your views, and touch on any experience that you feel would strengthen your application. So that is, we do look at those quite closely, and can be convinced sometimes by the quality of your personal statement. So give that time. It really is an important piece. And Melissa, you would be, I would say the majority of our applicants would be current final year students who apply, secure the conditional offer, and then it turns into the full offer if you achieve the required grade. So you're in good company is what I'm saying.
Okay. Can I ask a second question to you, Mrs. Crowley?
Yep.
I already said, like, I'm very interested in ADR, but I thought the family law clinic that you presented was very interesting, and I was wondering if it's offered for other LLM programs too, like sort of like extra curriculum, or is it just a course?
Yeah, so I've had a few applications over the year from both LLB and LLM students. So it's a matter of each application. I certainly welcome students from other programs, and ADR is like a first cousin in some ways of some of the family law modules that we do. So it would be a conversation between, let's say you're a student on the LLM ADR, a conversation between you and the director of your program, and then your director talks to me. I meet with you and then we make a decision. But I am open to it if it means that you still can cover all the necessary modules for your program, and we feel that it would be a good fit. So long story short, I have let other people into the clinic in the past, and it has worked out very well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for asking and I suppose sharing your concerns, and we thank you for being patient and certainly for choosing UCC in the first place. Doug, if you do not mind, I'm seeing two questions related to the International Human Rights and Public Policy program. So one is in relation to the actual certificate, so to the graduation certificate that students receive. There is a question whether there will be two separate certificates or whether it is one for the international human rights and public policy, rather than public policy being one qualification and the other being international human rights. So that is possibly one thing to qualify. And then there is a question in terms of the workload and the attendance and how it might fit around work commitments. So that is in relation to the international human rights and public policy specifically.
Excellent. Thank you very much, and thank you for those two questions. So to answer the first question, so it's quite a long title, but it's one qualification. So it's the LLM in International Human Rights Law and Public Policy. And that's actually an important point, because we try and blend in the question of how to influence public policy throughout the modules. So throughout the program, we're looking not just at legal practice, and this perhaps reflects the diversity of disciplinary backgrounds and the diversity of careers that people take, but we're not just looking at international human rights law from a legal practice perspective, but also how we can influence public policy from a variety of different perspectives. So the qualification itself is the LLM in International Human Rights Law and Public Policy. I'd answered writing a response to Helena's question in the Q&A, but maybe just to briefly explain, students will generally take around 30 credits per semester. And so one 10-credit module is 2 hours over 12 weeks, so 24 hours of seminars, and they're normally divided over the course of the 12 weeks on an equal basis, so 2 hours per week. So you're normally looking at around 6 hours of contact time per week. However, there's obviously a lot of expected self-study. This is a postgraduate degree, therefore there's a lot of time that we're expecting people to be reading or perhaps engaging in group work activities and so forth. We also can't obviously guarantee that those 6 hours will all be on the same day. There may be 2 hours on the Monday, 2 hours on the Wednesday, and 2 hours on the Friday. It will depend on the module choices that people are taking. Thanks.
Thank you, Doug.
Sorry, I have a call at 2, but can I answer the question that's in the chat?
Please.
Yeah, so thank you, Nadine, for the question. The Child Law Clinic is on hold just for the coming year for now, because the director, Professor Conor O'Mahony, is our Dean of Law, so it's simply a workload challenge. And so the Family Law Clinic is available next year. Normally what happens is they both run. They're both 10 credits. You choose one, and it runs over 2 semesters, which means that we meet about 6 times in each of the 2 semesters. And what typically happens is that there's the number of students generally divide sort of 50-50 between the two. Obviously, it's a student choice which clinic you pick, but for the coming year, it'll just be the Family Law Clinic. I hope that answers your question, Nadine.
Thank you so much, Louise, and thank you for joining us.
Yes, I have to run. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
And just one more question we have here from Hoodoo for Henrietta in terms of the LLM alternative dispute resolutions. So there is a question in regards to modules on arbitration. Is there a distinct LLM arbitration program? And how helpful would it be for a student to have this LLM degree if they plan to enroll in the professional practice course? Would you have any comments on that, Henrietta?
Great. Thanks very much. Really good questions. Yes, as of next year, we will be adding a specific arbitration module. We haven't had one in the past few years just because of staffing changes, but we will have a new module on arbitration next year. And then we teach arbitration and skills relevant to arbitration within other modules as well. So, for example, LW 6619, Alternative Dispute Resolution Processes and Practices, covers arbitration. And similarly in 6665, Advanced Mediation Theories and Skills compares mediation with a range of other dispute resolution mechanisms, including arbitration. So arbitration is touched on in a number of ways within the course. And I also mentioned that among our adjunct faculty, we have 2 arbitrators. So you do have actually lots of contact with industry. And then as to your second question, yes, having this LLM would be a real feather in your cap if you were to then go on to do the professional practice course. As I mentioned, Ireland and a number of other countries are shifting towards regulating the mediation profession, meaning that more solicitors and barristers are wanting to have the skills in alternative dispute resolution, and they will be required in many instances by the court to proceed to, for example, mediation or other forms of ADR before they can go on to, say, litigate. This means that when you approach an employer and can say that you have trained as an ADR specialist, then that will make you much more valuable in the employer's eyes in the world of professional legal practice. So yes, I think it's going to become increasingly necessary to have a degree in ADR within practice to get an edge.
Thank you very much, Henrietta. I am seeing no more questions in the chat or in the Q&A section. However, if there are any more questions that you might have, we might use another minute or two. So please type them in. Alternatively, I'm sure that there will be questions and concerns coming up later after the event and after the webinar is finished. So we will be sharing the recording of today's webinar with all the registered participants. We will be including the PowerPoint slides, and we will also be including our contact details. So please make sure you reach out to us if any more questions or concerns come up. But we are going to allow another minute or two if there are any more questions possibly coming through the chat or the Q&A from the participants here live. We have Melissa raise her hand again. Melissa, can you join us?
Sorry, me again. Another question to Professor Zeffert. Regarding, you said like when someone graduates in the ADR program, it's possible to be registered by the Institute of Arbitrators and the Irish Professional Mediators Organization. I read on the website that a graduate may undergo further qualification and fees and all this. So is it like I directly become a mediator or something, or is it you need more training or certain hours of training, or how is that?
Yes, thanks, Melissa. Yes, in terms of the Irish Professional Mediators Organisation, so what is fantastic about this course is that you would otherwise have to go off and do a lot more training to become a mediator. But with our program, at the end of it, you are qualified to practice as a mediator. So you could go out into the world and start mediating, and you would be recognised by the Irish Professional Mediators Organisation as what they call a newly qualified mediator. So that's sort of like the entry level for a mediator. Most mediators with that amount of training wouldn't want to start practicing immediately because you would need to gain more practical experience. So what our program enables you to do is to have that newly qualified mediator status, and then that enables you to enter the IPMO's own supervised mediation training program, where you would be given both a mentor and a supervisor, and you would begin to take on mediation cases on a co-mediation basis. So you would build up experience from there. And so that is that's the normal path to becoming a mediator. And it would be you would always have to go and do more training, but our course certainly enables you to jump through a number of hoops and opens many more doors than you would get otherwise. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Perfect.
Thank you, Henrietta. I see no more questions in the chat or in the Q&A section of the call. So if there are no more questions, we might end the webinar here. Thank you very much for joining us live this afternoon. Thank you to our program directors for taking their time and sharing information about their individual master's programs. We really appreciate everyone's time, and we are going to make sure that we follow on with an email with the recording, contact details, and the PowerPoint slides. So for now, we are saying farewell, and we thank you for your time. And I'm sure that we are going to see each other online or in person, hopefully.